The CIA's MKUltra program is infamous for its covert use of drugs, particularly LSD, to manipulate and destabilize individuals and groups, including socialists and left-leaning activists in America. This tactic was not unique to the United States. In China, during the Civil War, the Communist forces sold drugs to Chiang Kai-shek's troops in a strategic effort to demoralize and weaken their enemy from within. These historical instances highlight the potent role that drugs can play in undermining the morale and cohesion of political movements. In modern times, there has not been a direct WikiLeaks-style revelation, showing that the CEOs of major media corporations are deliberately pushing drugs on left-leaning audiences. Yet the cumulative effect of how drugs are promoted in media culture has often acted as if such a directive existed. While the left is typically associated with ideals of liberation and social progress, the mainstream media's casual promotion of drug use among left-leaning communities has led to an ironic outcome. Instead of fostering revolutionary energy, it has often contributed to the demoralization and disorganization of these movements. In many ways, this dynamic has contributed to America's standing as one of the most right-wing nations in the world, not in spite of the pro-drug culture, but because of it. MKUltra and drug use as a tool against socialists. MKUltra, officially sanctioned in the 1950s, was a covert CIA program designed to explore methods of mind control and behavioral manipulation. One of its most notorious methods was the use of psychoactive drugs, especially LSD. The CIA tested these substances on a variety of subjects, from unwitting individuals to targeted political dissidents, including left-leaning activists and socialists. The goal was simple: disorient, confuse, and break the morale of individuals and movements seen as a threat to the establishment. The strategy was effective in many ways. Drugs like LSD, with their ability to induce hallucinations and distort perceptions of reality, often left subjects paranoid, disillusioned, or mentally unfit to continue their activism. Rather than rallying against the system, many fell into psychological turmoil. The use of drugs became a powerful tool to disband leftist groups from within, subtly undermining their capacity for resistance without overt physical repression. Similarly, during the Chinese Civil War, communist forces used drugs to sabotage the morale of Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist troops. By distributing opium to their enemy, the communists aimed to weaken the resolve and discipline of nationalist soldiers, making them less effective in battle. This psychological tactic effectively eroded the nationalist military's fighting capacity, showing once again the strategic use of drugs to destabilize opposition forces. The mainstream media's promotion of drug culture. Fast forward to today, and we see a different, though no less insidious approach to drugs and left-leaning audiences. While there is no covert CIA program akin to MKUltra in operation, the mainstream media's normalization and often glamorization of drug use can be seen as a form of passive subversion. While there is no direct evidence or corporate conspiracy advocating for leftists to engage in drug use, the impact has been much the same as if there were. Popular media frequently portrays drugs as a symbol of countercultural rebellion, creativity, and freedom, values that resonate with many on the left. Movies, music, and television shows often romanticize drug use, presenting it as an escape from the harsh realities of an unjust system or as a pathway to deeper understanding. Cannabis, psychedelics, and other substances are promoted as liberating tools, essential to opening minds and breaking societal chains. However, the consequences of widespread drug use have been far more damaging to left-wing movements than beneficial. Drugs, especially when used regularly, often lead to a decrease in organization, motivation, and clear-headed activism. As seen with MKUltra's targets and Chiang Kai-shek's troops, drugs have a profound impact on morale. They blur the lines between meaningful action and idle distraction. The left's willingness to embrace a drug-friendly culture, influenced heavily by media portrayal, has allowed for the kind of demoralization that once required the covert actions of a government agency. The right-wing's advantage in a pro-drug culture. This widespread embrace of drug culture in left-leaning spaces has inadvertently played into the hands of right-wing forces. America's pro-drug culture has not led to a progressive social revolution, but rather to a weakening of the very groups that would otherwise challenge the status quo. Addiction, mental health struggles, and the general distractions of drug use prevent movements from mobilizing effectively and challenging entrenched power structures. Historically, no movement has succeeded while promoting widespread drug use. It is not that the goal should be to punish or ostracize those who fall into addiction. Rather, it is about recognizing the demoralizing effects that drugs can have on a collective movement. By undermining impulse control, mental clarity, and overall health, drugs prevent the kind of sustained, organized effort needed to create significant political change. Empathy and the progressive approach to drug policy. The key challenge for progressive movements is to maintain compassion while safeguarding against the harmful effects of decadence and drug use. Progressives are often drawn to empathetic leaders, those who understand the struggles of addiction and do not view addicts as bad people. However, a truly compassionate approach does not mean enabling behavior that ultimately weakens the individual and the movement. Progressive leaders must walk a fine line, advocating for rehabilitation, harm reduction and humane drug policies, while also ensuring that the movement itself remains strong, focused and resilient. One can care for those struggling with addiction without allowing the effects of drug use to spread unchecked through the movement. This approach requires clear boundaries, recognizing that addiction is a serious social issue, but one that cannot be permitted to demoralize or destabilize the pursuit of a just and equitable society. Conclusion. While there has never been a WikiLeaks-style revelation proving a coordinated effort by media corporations to push drugs on left-leaning audiences, the effects of such media-driven promotion have been much the same as if there were. America's pro-drug culture has contributed significantly to the weakening of progressive movements, much like the strategic use of drugs by MKUltra and Chinese communists in undermining their enemies. No movement can succeed while embracing or promoting drug use, not because it seeks to punish individuals for their struggles, but because drug use has a profoundly negative impact on morale, organization, and focus. For progressive movements to thrive, leaders must remain empathetic without enabling the kind of decadence that leads to self-destruction. Just as MKUltra demonstrated the power of drugs to dismantle activism, today's pro-drug media culture poses a similar threat to the strength and effectiveness of left-leaning causes.